I know. You've seen the reviews of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, but we all know what you were really waiting for was GameSmith's take on the brand new Pokémon game that came out 3 months ago. Well, wait no longer, my dear Pokéchums. This is my full and honest review, and when I say full, I mean I'm going through almost everything this game has to offer, so there are plenty of spoilers ahead. You've been warned. I actually made another video about the opening segments of the game, so I won't elaborate too much here. Suffice it to say that this is the longest introduction in a Pokemon game, and it goes a bit too slow for my liking. It is probably a mercy that the starters are shiny locked so that people don't suffer through starting over and over again trying to obtain one. Let's start where everyone has probably started, which is the graphics. This is where the Pokemon franchise put a big middle finger up to its fans and said, we don't give a flying crap what you think. Play our game and you're going to enjoy it, whether you like it or not. Honestly, on its newest gen system, this is just embarrassing. At first I thought, wow, the Switch finally hit its limit. But then I started thinking about the other open world games on the Switch. Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3, Elder Scrolls, and so on. None of them look this bad. None of them perform this poorly. But then why does Pokemon look so bad? Do the developers really not care about the world's highest grossing media franchise? Or have we all developed HD vision where we see graphics on another plane far above lesser folk? I really think there's only one reason, and yes, it's money! I used to blame the developers. A lot. Too much, in fact. But in reality, I believe the developers might be the only ones that actually do care. They pushed out a game that could run, albeit barely run, but they did it based on management's timeline. Management is too busy swimming in their pools of solid gold coins to understand how long it takes to develop these games. Game Freak was forced to push out Pokemon Legends Arceus on January 28, 2022, only 2 months after BDSP was released. Granted, BDSP was developed by ILCA and not Game Freak, but the push is ridiculous. Now in the same year, we're supposed to get the next landmark game in the Pokemon franchise? Honestly, the poor developers probably haven't slept in years. But enough ranting. I know my channel won't be making any waves soon, but it sure felt good to get it out. I'll continue writing them strongly worded letters, and they'll continue using them for kindling. The introduction kind of made me want to tear my hair out with how slow it was, but once you get into the game, it has a lot to offer. The starter Pokemon are all solid picks, and their evolutions are interesting to say the least. Skeledirge is my favorite, and Meowscarada has class, but Quaquaval, it looks like it continually has to use the bathroom and you just won't let it. Something I thought was cool is that each of them has their own move that is unique to them alone. My favorite is Skeledirge's Torch Song, which raises its special attack after each use, making it a potential powerhouse under the right circumstances. The Uba, or Naranja school, you now attend is all pomp and no circumstance. Its grandiose facade doesn't leave much to be explored. Instead of exploring passageways, you just pick a room from a list. I was hoping for something a bit more magical, but was left wanting. Moving from room to room gets you familiar with the loading screen and not much else. It's interesting that each of the rooms you enter looks pretty clean, the graphics are good, but the overall experience is lackluster. I know I beat on the graphics pretty hard, but the bright colors are nice to look at. But at least when the bare minimum of the school is out, you can finally start your journey. I must say the best part of the game for me is the fact that they built in 3 different storylines. You are tasked with defeating Team Star, building a super sandwich, and, as in all classic Pokemon stories, defeating all of the gym leaders. Let's start with Team Star. I was very skeptical about this new edition of Team Rocket. I think if we saw anyone strike this pose in real life, we might feel the need to cross the street, but I was pleasantly surprised by their novel approach to these encounters. I was also embarrassingly unaware until they made it painfully obvious that Clive was really the principal the whole time. I wasn't paying attention. Anyways, back to Team Star. Rather than have you just fight a horde of acolytes, instead you pick 3 Pokemon and run around using the fast battle mechanic and defeat up to 30 enemy Pokemon in under 10 minutes. I don't know what others' experience might be, but I never ran out of time or had to heal on the first phase. The squad bosses comprise the second phase, and this is where things get good. All 5 bosses start on top of a Starmobile, which is really a modified river broom, whatever you say that, with a unique ability based on its boss's type. While I didn't have trouble with most of the bosses, Aerie actually gave me a run for my money. It's these battles that bring you to the edge of your seat and leave you wanting more. All in all, while I do have some problems with the motivations behind Team Star, which is a subject for another video in and of itself, I really appreciated the new approach. Next, let's talk about the sheer amount of Pokemon in the overworld. There is an insane amount of Pokemon to be found. The diversity from the get-go is awesome. You can build pretty much any type of team you want. With each area, there is a new set of distinct Pokemon allowing you to switch up your team or add to your collection. However, once you get the ability to dash around on your legendary Pokemon, you run a bit too fast for the game to keep up. If you run around a bit slower, you'll find that you run into more and more Pokemon. Again, this is a big problem. You can't utilize the fast run feature to get around because then you'll end up missing Pokemon that can't generate in time for you to even find them. There's also a new fast battling mechanic which is pretty nifty. Instead of having to battle everything you see, you can just send out one Pokemon for a quick fight, making gaining crafting materials and experience easier to obtain. However, if you want to catch a Pokemon, you can no longer huck Pokeballs at them like you could in Legends Arceus, a feature I sorely miss. Instead, you need to go the tried and true route of battling them and lowering their health in order to capture them. Even without the Legends Arceus feature, it is still a good experience and very satisfying when you capture those particularly difficult Pokemon as in other iterations of the game. Next, let's look at the gyms. I know many of us missed having gym battles in Pokemon Legends Arceus, so I'm glad these made a return. I started my journey by going west, and then I went south, and then north, and then finally I went over to the east. My first gym was the Cortando gym, which felt like a good first gym experience. The preliminary gym challenge, however, was frankly a waste of time. I gave it a pass since it's the first gym, figured, there would be more difficult things up ahead, but I wasn't impressed with any of the others because none of them are challenging. One of my consistent issues with the Pokemon games is there's no difficulty scaling. The Pokemon games are designed to be played from fetus to past tense, but because of this, they have to compromise on challenge. For more experienced players, this leads to boredom. Next up were the Cascarafa and Medali gyms, hopefully I'm saying that right, which were more difficult with their jump in level, but a little level grinding outside of town and having good type matchups is all you need to take them down. After the Medali gym, I figured I should probably go see what was on the east side of the map. Here I met the flamboyant leader of the Artisan gym, where I promptly wasted his very low-leveled Pokemon. Again, difficulty scaling came to mind. These battles could be so much more meaningful. The only way to really make it a challenge is to arbitrarily set your own set of rules like in a Nuzlocke challenge. But since this was my first time through the game, I had no way of knowing where I was going or who I'd be fighting, so that's off the table for the time being. The other gyms posed a better challenge, and the Montenevera gym even had the doubles battles, which I thought it odd that this is really the only place in the game where you see them. The Elite Four again are defeated with good type matchups, and the final battle with Nemona was actually very entertaining. Speaking of Nemona, I've been friend zoned before, but this was the first time I've ever been rival zoned, which somehow seems far worse. All in all, even though I wished for better scaling, the gyms bring back the classic challenge Pokemon is known for, so I'm giving it a thumbs up. The last storyline is comprised of finding and defeating the Titans so that you can take their sandwich ingredients known as the Herba Mística. I know some of you are calling it Herba with an H, but it's really Herba. I'm probably the whitest guy you'll ever meet, but I am fluent in Spanish, and one of the aspects of the game I found quite charming were the little Spanish words sprinkled throughout the game. But again, I digress. Of the three storylines, I found the Titan battles to be my favorite. The battles have an elevated sense of danger, especially when they power up. Arven will show up to help you out, and if you haven't leveled up enough, he is a welcome addition to taking down the Titans. Similar to the gyms, I tackled the west side of the map first, where I fought the Iron Treads and the Bombardier Titans, but by the time I made it to the east side, found the Orthworm and Claw Titans, I pretty much annihilated them. However, once I got to the final Titan, the False Dragon Titan, Tatsugiri, it really gave me a run for my money. A very satisfying battle. After stealing the Herba Mística from each of the Titans, you find that you get a new power for your legendary Pokemon, including jumping higher, surfing, climbing walls, and gliding, and running faster. We'll talk a bit more about these later. You also find out that Arven is feeding each one to his Pokemon to help him recover from his melancholy, or whatever he's got. With each one, the Mastiff gets a little stronger until he's battle ready. Arven challenges you to a final battle, and he's as strong as any other trainer you'll meet. He has a solid team, and this was another battle for the books. 2 thumbs up. Before going further with the story, I would like to lodge another complaint, and it has to do with the open world design. It's not a true open world. In order to traverse the world completely, you'd need to defeat the 5 Titans and obtain all 5 Herba Místicas and gain their abilities. Does this sound familiar to anyone? In other words, you need to obtain 5 HMs to access new areas. And I can't take credit for that insight. My apologies, I don't know who originally came up with that, but it's spot on. I don't understand why they needed to do this. They still have the level limit for gym badges, meaning that if you catch a Pokemon above your gym badge level, they won't listen to you. If you catch one below your level limit and raise it to a higher level, then it will always listen to you. So it seems like they already have something in place. Also, if you don't clear the 3 storylines, you can't enter Area 0, so you would have to go to school eventually anyway to get things started. I don't understand the need for Game Freak to try and control your experience while simultaneously telling you that you have so much freedom. It is in fact only the illusion of choice. I've seen that some players were able to find ways to access later areas of the game before obtaining the necessary HM, but Game Freak can easily patch these out at any point they want. I don't think they'll be viable for the long term. So I'm gonna ding them for this one. Just let it be an open world and let people explore how they want. The paths they have set up from the beginning of the game would lead beginning players to school anyway. But if you ever want to replay the game and start from the beginning, you have to trudge through all of the opening stuff again. Frankly, it's just annoying. During your travels, picnics will become an important feature that will help you maximize your playthrough. You can make sandwiches, wash your Pokemon, which actually heals them in the process, chat with your Pokemon, or get Pokemon eggs. The sandwiches are the big ticket here. Even if the combination of ingredients looks disgusting, the right ingredients have a major impact on your end goal. Some of them let you capture Pokemon more easily or gain more experience. This is one of those features that seems trite, but is actually quite intricate when you get into the details. The more specific you can be with your ingredients, the better your results, especially with capturing shiny Pokemon. So I really like that they added this. After completing the 3 storylines, you are able to venture into Area 0 where you can find some of the rarest and most powerful Pokemon in the game. They did a great job with this area. The music is ominous, the spiral walk down, encountering multiple strong Pokemon while also learning some of the story of Arven's mom or dad, depending on which one you're playing, help to heighten the anticipation. Once you enter the bottom of the area, you'll learn the truth of Arven's parent. Arven's parent died in an accident while trying to save your legendary Pokemon, and then ChatGPT has now taken over their mind and is now running things in their stead. They warn you that trying to shut down their server will result in them turning on you and battling you, but it's the only way from keeping powerful Pokemon from the past or present from overrunning the Paldea region. With that, you promptly pull the plug and commence one of the hardest Pokemon battles in the franchise. This battle was one for the books as long as you didn't terribly overlevel yourself. After ChatGPT is defeated, you'll need to face down the legendary Pokemon that originally bested your companion. Put them in their place, and you'll watch the credits roll. As far as storylines go, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have the best in the series. In previous Pokemon games, the story felt like it was really just a side feature to the game mechanics. But here, they made a solid effort to tell a real story, and I think it paid off big time. With the story done, I would like to talk about some of the other features in the game. Let's start with the TMs. I will always miss the TMs that never broke when they were used. However, the new TM system lets you craft TMs made out of materials gathered from defeated Pokemon. While gathering the materials means you'll need to spend more time on them, some of them are worth the grind. So, I don't love or hate this mechanic, but either way it's there. The new gimmick in Scarlet and Violet is the Tera types. With it, you can change a Pokemon's type to any other singular type in the game. It can add to the complexity and strategy of your battles, and where I think it would really shine the most is in competitive play. While you're playing in-game, however, it seems to function more like Mega Evolution, giving your Pokemon a temporary power and defensive boost to help you overwhelm your opponent. You can tell that this is where Game Freak really spent their money with the animations. Some of the Pokemon look particularly cool when they're all bedazzled up, and each type has its own signifier that attaches to their head. The music is also pretty catchy. One thing that I thought was not awesome was the fact that most Pokemon's Tera type is one of its own original type. For example, Skeledirge, which is a ghost and fire type, will most likely have a fire or a ghost type for a Tera type. Pokemon with alternate Tera types are actually quite rare. You do have the ability to change a Pokemon's Tera type, but not without some grinding involved. All in all, it's a welcome addition to the game. With Tera typing comes the addition of Tera raids, which give you the opportunity to encounter various powerful Pokemon with Tera types much different from their regular types. They range from 1 star to 7 stars, and the difficulty at 6 or 7 is very, very difficult to say the least. Game Freak has been sending out various legendary Pokemon with limited releases, and they have been enthusiastically received by the community. However, you cannot just jump into one of these raids without a plan. Your Pokemon needs to be at top level and at the top of their game. You should make sure you have proper movesets to deal with them. Luckily, you can recall old moves if you need to, or you can use TMs. I really like this feature that they brought over from Legends Arceus. You can also choose to heal or increase the defense of your teammates, which will allow your powerhouses to fight freely without fear of fainting. I really like these raids, but you know what would make them better? The ability to do them with your friends. Or random people on the internet, since I'm still looking for friends. And with that, I would like to discuss the online capabilities. This is an area where the game shines, and yet also manages to fall apart. From the start of the game, you can join other players in their worlds, or vice versa. Once you're in the same world, you can catch version-exclusive Pokemon not available in your world. You can find mass outbreaks, battle each other, challenge Tera raids together, and even relax with a nice picnic. That all sounds great, doesn't it? It sure does. But on further analysis, Nintendo Online still feels like we're playing on dial-up. If things weren't glitchy before, they sure as heck are now. When you're in the overworld, this isn't too much of a hassle, but in the Tera raids where there's a dedicated time limit and no mercy for mistakes, this becomes very annoying. Oftentimes you'll watch the Tera Pokemon's health deplete almost to 0, only to watch it spike back up for some unknown reason. For this, I almost refuse to do Tera raids online that are 5-star or higher. There just isn't enough time if something happens to go wrong. In today's age, this is not acceptable for a game that touts the ability to bring many players together on a constant basis in things like raids. That's not to say that Tera raids aren't worth doing, but online just doesn't seem to be the place to do it. Completing the raids actually gives you a wealth of special items and resources you wouldn't otherwise be able to obtain, so they are worth doing. Like I said, I mainly do raids on my own, and in order to do the raids by yourself, you need to be able to max out your Pokemon's stats. This is usually the part where I find myself losing interest in the game. In previous games, you needed to follow certain steps perfectly, like finding a Ditto with perfect IVs, hopefully from another country, and then somehow you have to breed the perfect Pokemon with the perfect ability, and all the stars just have to align. Then you would have to train it just the right way, and then level it up. However, in Scarlet and Violet, things like rare candies, bottle caps, and ability patches are much more available than in games past. It's much easier to create a perfect Pokemon, which makes it much more enjoyable for me. I know that some players probably resent this change, and rightfully so. That which we obtain too easily, we esteem too lightly. However, for those of us who are unable to spend days crafting the perfect Pokemon, this is a welcome addition. It's accessible to more casual players, and I think I know why. If your Pokemon are not in tip-top shape, you will not be able to complete the DLC Tera raids with the 6 and 7-star Pokemon. These raids usually feature Pokemon with top levels and perfect stats, which makes them a formidable foe. And if people are unable to beat them, they will most likely lose interest. So whether or not you think it's good or bad, I'm glad that they did it. Now, if you've hung with me this long, I greatly appreciate it. I really enjoy making these long-form videos. If you've been with me until now, please start your comment with the word Skeledirge. That way I know who's following and who's not. I read and reply to almost every comment, so if you leave one, I'll know that you stuck with me this long. One thing that is usually consistently good in pretty much every Pokemon game is the music. To Game Freak's credit, the composers are probably the hardest working people there. Their music is always top notch, and in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, this is no exception. And last but not least is the post-game content. With the main story taking up the majority of the game, post-game content includes obtaining a Master Ball, catching a few legendary Pokemon, completing the Pokédex, re-challenging the gym leaders, unlocking 5 and 6-star raids, catching shiny Pokemon, and taking on the Academy Ace tournament. A lot of these are staples of any Pokemon game, but I'm glad they're there. Honestly, my heart still yearns a bit for something a little more akin to the Battle Frontier, but that's probably never going to happen, so I will keep pining away. However, with new systems like the Switch, we're able to enjoy new DLC like the Hidden Treasure of Area 0, which is coming out, I believe, in fall and winter of this year. They plan on bringing a new area, new Pokemon, and they're planning to bring some other Pokemon from the past that weren't included in the original release. Time will tell if these are worth the extra money that they'll charge. And now, the final verdict. This game is probably the best Pokemon game that has been made thus far, although that is surely up for debate. But that being said, there are some glaring issues that keep it from being a truly great game. Thus, I'm awarding it a 9.0 out of 10. Now, if you took away the performance issues and the online lag, I would have given it a 9.8 out of 10. Like a lot of my other reviews of Pokemon games, it's a fun game, but it lacks polish, which I can only attribute to advanced timelines of their releases. Well everyone, I think that's going to be it for now. If you got any value out of the video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.